You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 171. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Are you a new teacher feeling overwhelmed by all there is to figure out in the classroom? Do you want practical strategies for how to avoid teacher burnout? Welcome to the Balanced Educator Podcast. I'm Kaylee, and in this episode, I'm interviewing Alisha, a seasoned educator and co-host of the teacher podcast, Rainbow Skies for New Teachers. With 13 years of classroom experience under her belt, she's also one of the visionaries behind Rainbow Sky Creations, a platform dedicated to empowering and supporting new teachers. Through her passion for education, Alisha strives to offer practical strategies and invaluable insights, making the journey into teaching smoother and more fulfilling for educators everywhere. Before we jump into the interview, here's a word from our sponsor. Do you want to incorporate social-emotional learning and mindfulness into your classroom to support students with mental health, focus, self-regulation, and emotional intelligence? With so much on your plate as a teacher, you probably just don't have time to get trained, develop resources, and teach the lessons yourself. Plus, you need time for self-care too. That's why we developed EduCalm, to support teachers like you. EduCalm is a fully bilingual English and French co-regulation program created by teachers. This program provides everything you'll need to build self-regulation, mindfulness, and social-emotional skills with your students through a 5-minute daily practice. With EduCalm, you don't have to be the expert. Just log in, press play, and participate with your students as you all prepare your minds and bodies for calm and focused teaching and learning together. Go to educalm.com to learn more and start using our free resources. Again, that's educalm.com, spelled E-D-U-C-A-L-M-E. Hello, Alisha. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Hi, Kaylee. It is an absolute pleasure to join you here on the podcast.
I'm so excited we were able to make it work. I love what you're doing over at Rainbow Sky Creations. It's just so needed. So let's dive right in. Can you introduce yourself and let me know, how did life lead you to where you are today and what you're passionate about today?
Absolutely. So I'm Alisha, one half of Rainbow Sky Creations. I have an amazing friend, ex-colleague, business partner, Ashley, and we started Rainbow Sky Creations back, oh my goodness, about 8 years ago. Funny story is we actually met teaching in Dubai at an international school, and we found out we were two Aussies, and before you know it, you kind of connect with others who are on a similar cultural values and all that jazz. So she moved back to Sydney. Years later, I met the love of my life, my husband now, and he was from Sydney, and we moved back over there. And I was unemployed, working out what my next stepping stone was in education. Ashley was about to have her first baby, and I said, I've got this crazy idea. Like, let's get into the teacher market and start sharing these great ideas that we have. And she was like, yeah, this sounds amazing. I'm on board. And before you know it, it involved to us creating resources to support teachers, to save them time and energy. We both have a real passion for maths and hands-on learning. And then it kind of evolved into something else where we kind of felt like there was a real need in the market, well, not, I guess, in the world for supporting new teachers. I myself did a diploma in education. Now, I don't know how it is for you. I actually trained with a lot of Canadians who came over to my state to teach in education because it was really hard over where it is for you now. And I did a 1-year course, like a 1-year crash course, like a dip ed. And then I was in the classroom, and it was sink or swim, baby. And it was really tough, really tough. And I spent a few years in my home state, then I went overseas, then I ended up in Sydney, and I just felt like I was kind of treading water a little bit. Like, I had some lovely mentors, but everybody was just trying to survive. Like, our backpacks were weighed down. So it came to, 10 years into my teaching career, then I'm having my first baby and it's like 13 years in the classroom. And I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. And I'm seeing new teachers coming in and they're tired too. So Ashley and I started to create a community called Transform Your First Years. And we have still a great love for creating resources, but we also have a real great love for supporting new teachers and pretty much giving them the real life of teaching. So what it's like when you're not at university, because I don't think they kind of teach you everything. And there's only so much you can teach in prac, but sometimes you just need to hear what it's really like and what simple strategies you can do to have a really smooth start to your education career. Because I think we're losing some really great teachers without just some, yeah.
It's so tough for new teachers, no matter how much training you get in university to prepare you for the classroom, just never seems to fully line up. We talk to so many teachers, and across the board, it's like no one feels like they were totally prepared for the realities of the classroom. And that can look different, whether it's like, the way I was taught to lesson plan didn't make sense, or the way I was taught to evaluate didn't make sense, or, in our case, we noticed that we just weren't prepared for the social emotional needs of our students. And that was something that was lacking in our education. And you're right, new teachers they need that support, those resources. You're coming in with like nothing in your hands and you're like, I need to create everything. How do I do this? So unless you're lucky enough to have really amazing mentors where you work that are willing to share their resources with you, it is tough to tread water and get everything done that needs to get done. So what would you say that like new teachers are challenged with the most? What are those biggest hurdles that we have to get over when we're new in our career?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it's a very wide scope with concerns that come through from our community. And within our membership, we kind of cover 6 key pillars. So the things that we kind of keep hearing is like classroom management, which like comes with behavior management. We hear about oh my God, what is work-life balance? Can I achieve this? They're stressed about lesson planning. How am I going to organize my class? And other things in terms of parents, like especially some of those young teachers coming through, they're really worried about the parents.
Oh my gosh, I made so many mistakes in the beginning when I was a new teacher with parent communication.
Yes. And it is a bit like you've got to walk the walk, but there are some things that you can do to make it a bit easier on yourself when you kind of know what's ahead of you. And what we try to do is saying, look, we don't have every single answer, but we can give you all our tried and tested strategies and save you having to do the hard yards. Because I think when it comes to teaching, it is about that sense of empowerment. You're going into a classroom with lots of kids that you don't know. They all bring their own elements of dynamics. So it's going to change year to year. Your toolkit is going to change year to year, but your basic foundations, that's what we're all about. Like setting up those really good foundations. So when things do get a little bit rocky, you can go back to what you know works, or you can have that time and energy to find that solution that's going to work for that student or that class that you're working with. So I think that's really important in being open and flexible, because when is anything predictable with your family, with relationships? It changes. So you got to factor that in as well with education. But we can definitely help you with those tried and tested strategies and help you build up your toolkit.
That's awesome. So let's dive into these strategies. I want to hear them. Let's prepare these new teachers with what they need going into the classroom that they might not have learned in university, or they might have kind of touched upon it, but never been given the actual concrete steps of how do I do this?
Absolutely. So I won't give you everything because we would be here all day, all week, and all year. We could come to the University of Rainbow Skies, Transform Your First Years. And I guess you feel exactly about the same about that social and emotional element. Let's start with like getting organized. Like teachers just go, oh my gosh, I'm not the most organized person. That's okay. Neither was I, still not. But there are some things that you can do. First thing is you just want to have really good tools. Like you want to have a great teacher planner. If you like we'll touch on assessment, but if you want to have somewhere where you're recording data, we live in a digital world. So how are you going to organize those digital files? Like, are you going to set it up? I recommend it. Your school probably already does. You set it up on the cloud so you can access it from anywhere. Not saying we want you working at home till midnight, but it kind of just takes the pressure off of not forgetting, like worrying about where you saved it. Like it's somewhere safe if anything, God forbid, happened to your laptop. So bookmarks. I think sometimes we don't utilize the power of bookmarking. So when you've got those websites that you're always going to, or you've got your school portal, set up a good morning bookmark tab is probably one of the easiest things you could do. So if you know you're always going to that website for the maths games or for that week, you're always having your link to your email or to your Google files or wherever things are stored, have a little good morning bookmark stored up the top and it's right there ready to go. So instead of searching for everything, you just click, click, click. And I think sometimes I was guilty of always leaving my laptop on and having all those tabs up. And then I'd be like, oh my God, my computer shut down overnight because gosh, it got tired because it's been running for about a year without being turned off. So save yourself the stress of having to hunt for it again and set up all those tabs, bookmark it. And another really easy one is we used to set up a weekly checklist. So it was just a piece of paper and they're the same things you're doing every single week, whether it's making sure your kids have got, their spelling words or their homework, or you're always changing their readers, or you're switching out the maths games, or you're sending a note out to parents or an email out to parents. Just having a weekly checklist that's a bit of paper, we would just pop it into like a plastic sleeve and we could use it like a laminated sheet. And that would just be my brain on a bit of paper, saving me have to remember it every single week. So there are just a few simple ones you can do for getting organized.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you talk about is like anything that you have to do repetitively, have a system for it. Have it so that you don't need to think about it. It's ready to go for you. And that's one, I guess, tab that you can close in your brain because you don't have to remember. It's like you have a simple system that allows you to follow the same steps over and over. That can remove so much weight off of our brain by just having those couple really simple things like organized for us and doing it repetitively over and over. And it just becomes part of your routine. We talk so much about creating routines in the classroom with our students so that they don't have to think about it. But the same is true for us as teachers. Like anything that you're repeating, you can make it into a system that doesn't need to be thought of. And yeah, it might take you like 5 minutes to figure out what that checklist is. But once you do, it just makes your day run so much smoother.
Yeah. Like if you're hitting the point that you've done this for the third time in the term or the third time in a month, just go, I'm going to write down what I'm doing. And then I've got that there ready to go.
Yeah, totally.
Love checklists.
Yeah.
Should probably incorporate more into my family life, but we'll get there eventually.
I actually just did that today. I made some like routine cards for my 2-year-old son for like what the routine is for the day, like I used to do in the classroom, so that, because he's at the age now where he's talking a lot more and he like wants to know what's coming next, but then can't remember what's coming next. So I'm like, we need visuals. Like,
absolutely. But everyone feels better when they've got a sense of knowing what's coming next. Like it will, calm you. It will set those boundaries and trust us, your kids in your classroom, your kids even at home are going to appreciate it.
Totally.
I think the next one is classroom setup. I think people go, oh my God, I've never been in a classroom before as the teacher. Like I've been during my prac, I've been as a student in a classroom, but how do I actually organize a classroom? And I think for some people it's exhilarating because they're like, woo, I get to decorate, I get to make it beautiful. And for others, it's like, it's a little bit overwhelming. Like I'm happy for someone to have already pre-set it up. So whether you're sitting on either camps, I think the first thing is when you're going into a classroom and it's yours for the first time, just have a think about what spaces do you want in that classroom. And I guess the first thing is like, where's your space going to be? Like if you're going to have a teacher desk or where you're going to store it, where's that going to be? where's your mat area? Where's your collection spot for all the students? So that whole class instruction. And usually that's going to fit where your whiteboard is or where you're delivering your information with your interactive whiteboard. And then the other things are like, how do you want the desk set up? Like how you position those desks sets a tone for the kids, grouping them all together for collaboration or setting them up in lines or like single desks for like, focus, independent. And there's times for it. I used to always like to start off with like a big shoe horse with like kind of like the E and like kind of like we're a team, we're all working together. So that in itself is like, important. And the other thing would be you've got materials, you've got tools. So how are you going to set them up accessible for the classroom? And I guess a really big one is where's your reading? Like, where are you storing your reading books? Because, the class library, I feel, is kind of a little bit like the heart. I guess where everyone meets together is a bit of the heart, but the class library, just something about it. And then from there, I'd probably branch off and have like where the kids could access the communal materials or the games or whatever it might be that is really enhances your learners in the classroom. So just break it down. And that's what we always do in our, classroom setup guide is we just have it down of like, these are the spaces you're going to want to consider. These are add-ons you could have, but just focus on these like 5 core. And if you get that down pat, then you can start to unpack how you want students to be able to access materials. Because I think that's so important. Get down on the student level because they're going to be the ones in that space just as much as you are.
Totally. I like to always, because I've set up many different classrooms in my career, and different age groups, and I always liked to kind of like physically walk through the classroom, imagining that I was a student. Like, what does it feel like when I first walk in? Where do I naturally want to walk to when I first walk in? Like, how is the classroom guiding me to get to my seat? What am I going to walk by before I actually get to my seat? And kind of doing that can make you think and potentially see some problems that could arise from the beginning. There was one classroom that I had with a group of grade 5ers that had, there was a lot of behavior challenges in that classroom. And I was coming in kind of midway through the year, and just walking into the classroom immediately was like, I see some trigger points already just by the way that the room was physically lined up. Like there was a library area where the books were very disorganized and also like created like a block. So there was an area where kids could go that I wouldn't be able to see them. It's like little things like that where you're like, oh, I always want to be able to have eyes on my students. I need to adjust that. Or for myself, I'm really triggered by like disorganized visual clutter really stresses me out.
Yes. So, like it does with every woman out there. It's a scientific fact. I'm not making this up.
So anywhere that I saw like visual clutter, I was like, that's going to stress me out. And it's just a zone that my brain opens a tab saying, I need to clean this. I need to clean this. So it feels like it's putting more work on me. So like, can I get rid of that clutter? Can I organize it in a different way so that it feels less cluttered? Can it go behind a door or a curtain when it's not being used? Things like that. And then also, I think visual clutter really affects students as well. So 100%. Something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you've got some kids who'll be looking at doing like, they'll just be staring at that. And then you've got other kids who don't care. But I think at the end point, if it's stressing you out, it's going to be stressing out, I'd say at least 20% of your class. And making sure you've got smooth pathways. Like I always found I'd be walking around the desk and I'd be like, I'm struggling to get through here and I'm not that big. So like, how's your flow through the classroom? They're really good points you've raised there, Kaylee.
Yeah.
My next one is the dun, dun, dun. You would feel strongly about this one with lots of amazing ideas. Classroom management. Like this is huge. Like, and I think there's so much scientific research to back up that there are probably things that have been done in the past that could be done better. Like it's all about inclusivity as well and being receptive to how everybody's brains work a little bit differently. So I think what I'm going to share for you today is just like a needle in a haystack. Like you kind of like, you're just scraping the surface. But I think if you go in, like I said before, each year it's going to be different. So what might work one year may not work as well the next year, just based on the cohort of students that you have. So just being open to expanding on your toolkit and being receptive to listening to the teachers previously. If you've got a class coming through and you've had teachers who have taught them or some students who are finding things a little bit challenging when it comes to change, use those around you. And I think any of these advice that we give you, say, use the people around you, use your colleagues around you. So ultimately, your main aim for classroom management is connection. You want to be building connection with your students. Nobody's going to be learning if they don't feel seen, heard, valued. It's just think how you would
shout it from the rooftops.
Yes. And it's like, just think how you would feel, right? Like, I just think sometimes when I go to a doctor's surgery and I've got an ailment and I want to go tell the doctor about it, and then straight up, if you feel like that doctor's looking at you going, well, here we go again. Like, do I actually believe that person? Right then and there, I'm like, well, you know what? I don't feel receptive to anything you're going to tell me, even with all the knowledge that you've got. So connection. You spend those first few weeks, you spend that first month getting to know your students, but them also getting to know you. Like, you're this amazing powerhouse. You know, you're the cornerstone of that classroom. And if they don't get to know you, then you're not being vulnerable. You're not letting them in. So I think that's really powerful. Make sure you're building connection. There are so many different games, activities, just things that you can do. Like my real fun one I used to do, and it's simple and it's probably a bit egocentric, but just doing a quiz about me. Like, get up Kahoot, write a quiz about, Miss Hughes back in the day, and instantly you're going to allow kids to get to make a connection with, whether it's something you like to do in your spare time, food you like to eat, just, pets that you've had in the past or pets that you currently have. And I think when there's a reason why they get teachers to write a letter to students, like meet the teacher, like that's a really important thing. You got to share a bit about yourself. I mean, I remember one student, she thought my surname's Hughes, spelled Hughes, but she thought my name was Miss Hugs. And she came in going,
that's so cute.
And I was like, do you know what? It's a lot nicer than Mrs. Hughes. So, yeah, and like straight then and there, we just had this lovely connection that just started from that. So, and as well with the classroom management that we touched on before, you're building connection, but you're establishing those routines and procedures. They're like two things you want to kind of marry together, and you want to spend that time. And like we kind of like to say, and we do the same when we're doing like explicit instruction and lesson planning, it's like I do, we do, you do, and you just model that. And we just have like a whole list of different routines you want to do when entering the classroom, exiting the classroom, starting a lesson, in the middle of the lesson, when they're like at playtime. You just want to make sure they just know where those kind of boundaries are, and it allows you to be able to be like, hang on, that's not what happens in our classroom. What do we do? And bring it back in. So they're my two big things: connection and spending time on those routines and procedures.
Nice. Now I have a question to go a little bit deeper with routines and procedures. So as a new teacher, I feel like sometimes it's hard to even create those routines and procedures when you've never had your own class. So you don't exactly necessarily know what you want that to look like. And so first off, I would say from like my experiences, you'll probably start with something and it's going to shift through the year, through the like with depending on which students you have, it's going to shift from year to year as your priorities as a teacher change. But what would you recommend to kind of start with when we're saying like routines and procedures? Okay, what do I need to think of when I'm first creating this?
Oh, absolutely. And I would be starting with like what happens when they first come into the classroom. Like, what are they going to do with their stuff? Where does that go, right? Like, how do they access materials? If they need to go to the bathroom, like, how do they get to the bathroom? You want to know where the bathroom is, right? So where am I going to put my things? What happens when I enter the classroom? I always used to like to have my whiteboard up and have like little instructions there or little activities set up that they could do in the mornings. They knew where their bag went. They knew where, like if we have diaries, where their diary went. They knew how to ask me during lessons how to get to the bathroom. And it was kind of like that expectation of like, when we're on the mat together and we're learning together, this is what it looks like. This is how it works well. And we always start the first day with talking about classroom expectations. Like, what do we want this class to be about? So I'd be kind of basing my things off that. So like we're talking like kindness. So like, what does kindness look like? How do we, what doesn't it look like? Listening to others, what does that look like? What doesn't that look like? So I'd be definitely focusing on like making sure the students feel safe, how to use their space, and also how you want to communicate to them. It's kind of like, this is what we do. This is my signal. This is what I say when we need to kind of like stop, listen, and I have to deliver instruction. But I would be starting with those first core basics, and then we could probably unpack another 25 you could do.
Yeah, totally. And eventually you realize that like 90% of your classroom management is connection and just those repetitive procedures that they know the rules, but you've had to tell them 1,000 times before it becomes natural for them. Yeah. It's like that's routine repetition of those same routines is so important for them to eventually get it. And it feels frustrating at first because you're like, how many times do I have to repeat this and walk them through this routine? And then one day it just sort of clicks and you're like, oh, wow, things are running more smoothly. I'm having to do a lot less interventions. They know where they're supposed to be. I can jump into the lesson a lot faster. So to those new teachers, I would say just really stick with those routines until you see results, because the more consistent you are with always sticking to those exact same routines and expectations and procedures, eventually they learn it and then it becomes easier from there. But it's tough in the beginning.
It is. And every term, we have 4 terms in Australia, and every term you're going to revisit it in different ways. And worst case scenario, not even a worst case scenario, but if you feel things are falling off, you get your class down for a class meeting and be like, get everyone in a circle and be like, I'm finding XYZ. How are you guys feeling? And I'm talking, you can do this with your little kids, and you can definitely do it with your bigger kids. So just be open to have a discussion with them as well. And
that comes back to creating that connection again. Like, I care about how you feel in this classroom as well. It's not just me, it's you. Tell me about your experience. How can we work on this together? The funny thing that I always found with doing class meetings like that, talking about how are things going? What do we want to improve on? What's our plan for this next month, of how we want to improve things and what we want to work on? The students always, without fail, listed the same things I would have listed, except it came from them. So they cared about it more. It wasn't me telling them they had to, work on listening to instructions quietly so that everyone could hear. They came up with that on their own. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help support you with that. What are some strategies we can use to make sure that we're listening during instruction time? And they had great ideas. So that connection piece is so important.
It does. Gives them more agency. Be like, oh my gosh, I'm so onto this. You're like, you are, kids. You are.
Yeah, absolutely. And they feel proud of themselves when they then meet those goals, because it's not something necessarily that you're pushing on them. It's something that they care about and want to reach those goals. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. They're not that scary, those class of kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to meld the other two. I'm going to meld 2 together, lesson planning and assessment. Like, these are really big things that stress out teachers. They're like, oh my gosh, I've got to now teach these kids. Use the programs that have been written before you. Like, most schools will have them somewhere on the portal, and you can jump on and be like, oh, this is what year 2s were doing for maths in term 1. Use what's available to you. If you're going to save time and energy by investing in a subscription or investing in a resource that is going to enhance your learning, and I always think, can I use this again, or can I use it differently, and can I use it, through most of the year? It's worth an investment. So sometimes you have to invest a little bit to save your peace of mind and deliver content your kids are going to love. But be flexible. And if there's one piece of advice when it comes to lesson planning, get an A4 sheet of paper, columns for each subject, rows for each week of that term, or for us it's terms. They're usually like no more than 10 weeks up to 11. And then I would just write a really rough idea that in writing, I'm going to be covering these breakup parts to writing a narrative. In spelling, we're going to cover these phonic sounds and link that up with our phonemic awareness for this. For maths, we're going to cover this, and you'll find it might be 5 concepts. And in history or digital technology, we're going to cover this. And it kind of gives you an overview, and you look at it, and we call it a pacing guide, and you go, oh, okay. And if you pin that up and you go, okay, that's what I'm working towards. If I don't meet that pace, it's okay. I just know where I'm heading. And then you kind of reassess that at the end of the term and see where you like hit the marks, and you go from there. So if anything, set up a pacing guide. It's just going to help you. And you can ask us if you want more information about how to do that. But it's really quite a simple way to just stay on top of all those subjects that you have to teach. And lastly, when it comes to assessment, just get into good habits of recording your data. Like, don't be me in my first few years where I'm like, my brain is so amazing. It holds so much information. It's like, it does, but get your digital spreadsheet out, get your paper spreadsheet and convert it to digital. Like, just start recording. Like I always found maths was a really one to start recording. I have symbols that I would use for if students were working at level, beyond level, or below level. So I wouldn't have to be writing numerical values. I just had a system that went, yeah, they're on point, or just a system to put like a highlighted a color to go, I need to check in with that student because they're finding that concept really tricky. So use your assessment book in a way that's going to be a good form of communication for you. And I use symbols because I felt like the kids couldn't really look over my shoulder and know what that meant. They went, whoa, what is she writing? Why is she teaching me? She doesn't even know what she's doing in that book, but I knew what it meant. So right. we have like a little symbol system that we teach our members in our group that worked for us, that could work for you. So lesson planning and assessment, they're big areas, but utilize those that are around you. And if you start with those like core areas, I think you'll be off to a better start and feeling more in control of the situation.
That's awesome. So it sounds like we just touched the surface of all the amazing information you have to share with new teachers. How can they connect with you after this episode? Because I'm sure they're going to want to get your resources and learn more from you.
Absolutely. So our website is rainbowskycreations.com. That's our little hub where we've got hundreds of blog posts. The amazing Ashley is on the socials. You'll see her face more. I appear every now and then. So we're there on Instagram, on TikTok. But yeah, if you jump onto our website, you can find out more about our membership, Transform Your First Years. But we're there to empower you and build up your confidence and toolkit so that you go into the classroom feeling like you're on top of it. And those foundations of education, those pillars that we've talked about, you're in control of it. So yeah, come stop by, have a chat. We've also got a podcast, Rainbow Skies for New Teachers. So we talk about these things. We have a good chinwag like we've been having today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We are going to link everything in our show notes. So it'll be really easy for listeners to just go into the show notes from the app that you're using and click right on those links to connect with you. Thank you, Alisha, so much for being here with us today and sharing all the goodness you know for new teachers.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Kaylee.
I hope you enjoyed listening to that interview as much as I loved doing the interview. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone that you think would get value from it too. Now, before you put your phone away, can you do us a favor? Jump into your podcast app and write a review for the show. Writing reviews really helps other teachers to find our podcast too. And it's also one of the only ways that we kind of hear your feedback on the show. So with podcasts, it's not like social media where people comment or like your posts. With podcasts, we're kind of talking into the void sometimes. So it's so nice to hear back from you through reviews. So thank you so much for being here, sharing your time with us. We appreciate you and all the work you're doing in the world. Have a wonderful day.